Samuel Obi had 8,500 Nigerian nairas left to his name, barely enough for the taxi back home if this interview failed. He was 12 minutes from the gleaming gates of Innovate Tech Solutions when he spotted the elegant woman in the yellow dress, stranded beside a luxury car billowing steam, and faced a decision that would either destroy his family's last hope or rewrite his destiny. The story opens in a modest flat in Suralere, where morning light filters through thin curtains onto peeling walls. Samuel stands before a spotted mirror balanced on a wooden crate, his fingers fumbling with the knot of a borrowed tie. The suit, pressed a dozen times to hide its age, hangs a bit loose on his frame, but his eyes burn with quiet determination. His younger sister, Ngozi, appears in the doorway, clutching her school uniform. "Brother, you didn't eat," she says softly, nodding toward the single-boiled egg and bread on the table, their shared breakfast. Samuel breaks the egg in half without hesitation, places the larger portion on her plate. "You have exams today. I'll eat after I get the job." He forces a confident smile, though his stomach gnaws with hunger and nerves. As he steps into the chaotic Lagos morning, the symphony of honking danfos, market vendors' calls, and generator hums, Samuel clutches the folded printout of his interview confirmation. 10 a.m. sharp at Innovate Tech Solutions. The company's glass tower has haunted his dreams for weeks, a monument to everything his family could become if he can just hold his nerve for 1 hour. The Okada weaves through traffic. Samuel checks his phone, 9:48 a.m. 12 minutes. His heart hammers against his ribs. Then he sees her, the woman in the vibrant yellow Ankara dress with blue embroidery, standing beside a sleek blue car with its hood raised like a surrendering soldier. Steam rises in angry clouds. Her arms gesture helplessly at passing vehicles that don't slow down. Her face, elegant, professional, frustrated, catches the morning sun. Samuel's driver accelerates past her. "Wait," Samuel hears himself say. "Stop. Stop the bike." The Okada lurched forward, but Samuel's hand shot out to grip the driver's shoulder. "Please. Stop here." The driver twisted back, confusion creasing his face. "Oga, we go late oh. You say 10 o'clock sharp." "I know." Samuel's voice came out steadier than he felt. "Just wait for me. Please." He dismounted, his polished shoes, borrowed from his cousin, hitting the dusty roadside. The morning sun had climbed higher now, turning the air thick and heavy. Ahead, through the shimmering heat waves rising from the asphalt, she stood like something displaced from another world entirely. The woman's Ankara dress seemed to glow in the harsh light, yellow fabric adorned with intricate blue patterns that probably cost more than Samuel's rent. She had her phone pressed to her ear, one hand gesturing emphatically at the disabled car while her face cycled through frustration, embarrassment, and barely contained panic. Even from 20 feet away, Samuel could see the quality of everything about her, the designer handbag resting on the car's hood, the gold jewelry catching sunlight, the confident posture now undermined by circumstance. The blue car itself was a statement. Sleek, modern, expensive. The kind of vehicle Samuel had only seen in the parking lots of corporate headquarters when he dropped off job applications. Now it sat crippled, hood raised like a white flag, steam still hissing from its engine in angry bursts. She noticed him approaching and lowered her phone slightly, her eyes narrowing with the wariness of someone who'd learned to be cautious on Lagos roads. Samuel saw her grip tighten on her handbag. "Good morning, Ma." He stopped at a respectful distance, hands visible, non-threatening. "Your car don't spoil." "Obviously." Her tone was clipped, defensive. Then she seemed to catch herself, softened slightly. "I've called for help, but..." She glanced at her phone screen, then at the road stretching in both directions. "They say 45 minutes. Maybe more." Samuel checked his own phone. 9:51 a.m. 9 minutes. Everything in him screamed to get back on that bike. The interview panel would be gathering now, shuffling papers, reviewing candidate profiles. His profile. His one chance to prove he was more than a threadbare resume and borrowed clothes. His mother's medical bills. Ngozi's school fees. The landlord's final notice folded in his pocket like a ticking bomb. But the woman's eyes held something he recognized, the specific helplessness that came from being capable and accomplished in 99 scenarios, but completely undone by the 100th. He'd seen that same look in his mother's face when the hospital demanded payment upfront. When competence met a wall it couldn't scale alone. "Ma, I fit check am." The words left his mouth before his brain could overrule them. She studied him, really looked at him this time. Took in the too large suit, the nervous energy, the phone he kept glancing at. "You're dressed for something important." "Yes, ma." "Interview." "But..." Samuel gestured at the engine. "Maybe no small thing. I saw be small mechanic work." Aisha Bello, though Samuel didn't know her name yet, looked at this young man in his obviously borrowed suit, offering to ruin it for a stranger, and something shifted in her expression. Not quite trust, but close enough. 9 minutes, she said, having seen his phone. "You have 9 minutes to get wherever you're going." "Yes, ma." "And you want to spend them under my hood?" Samuel met her gaze directly. Behind him, the Okada driver revved his engine impatiently. Ahead, somewhere in the glass towers of Victoria Island, a door was preparing to close. "Sometimes," Samuel said quietly, "person fit help." The woman stared at him for 3 long seconds. Then she stepped back from the car, one hand making a gesture that was half invitation, half surrender. "Your suit will be destroyed." "Yes, ma." Samuel was already rolling up his sleeves. "But your car go work." He didn't see her expression change as he bent toward the engine. Didn't see the way she watched him with sudden, sharp attention, the kind of attention that had built empires and identified talent in unlikely places. He only heard his phone buzz in his pocket. 9:53 a.m. 7 minutes left. His hands were already reaching into the mechanical guts of her expensive car, grease beginning to stain his cousin's wedding suit, while behind him the Okada driver checked his own watch and shook his head at the madness of young men who chose strangers over destiny. The engine bay was a maze of metal and hoses, still radiating heat that made sweat bead immediately on Samuel's forehead. He bent closer, squinting past the steam, his pristine white shirt collar already wilting against his neck. "Careful, it's hot," Aisha warned, but Samuel was already tracing the radiator hose with careful fingers, following it to where coolant pooled beneath the engine block. "Yes, ma. I see am." His voice had shifted into something focused, professional. The nervous young man from moments ago had been replaced by someone who understood machines, who spoke their language. "Your radiator hose done burst. See here." He pointed to a split in the rubber, a clean tear that wept greenish fluid. Aisha leaned in slightly, careful to keep her dress away from the greasy components. "Can you fix it?" Samuel straightened, already calculating. His cousin's suit jacket had become an impossible burden in the heat, and he shrugged it off without thinking, draping it across the car's side mirror. Grease had already found his sleeves, dark smears against the light fabric like accusations. "I fit try patch am temporarily." "You get tape for your car?" "Any emergency kit?" "In the trunk." She moved to retrieve it, heels clicking against asphalt, and Samuel heard her rummaging through what sounded like a well-organized collection of supplies. When she returned, she handed him a small emergency kit, the expensive kind that came standard with luxury vehicles, still sealed in plastic. Their fingers brushed during the exchange. Hers were soft, manicured, adorned with rings that probably cost more than his family's monthly expenses. His were already stained with grime, careless from the odd repair jobs he took to supplement his job search. "Thank you," she said quietly, and something in her tone made him glance up. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read, not pity, not gratitude exactly. Assessment, maybe. Like she was memorizing him. "No walla, ma." Samuel tore open the kit, found the electrical tape, and dropped back into his work. He was aware of her standing just behind his left shoulder, aware of the Okada driver's continued grumbling, aware most of all of his phone's relentless march toward 10 a.m. But his hands remained steady. He wound tape around the split hose, layering it carefully, testing the tension. The work required him to reach deep into the engine compartment, his chest pressed against the car's frame, his borrowed shirt absorbing heat and oil and the particular smell of automotive failure. His arms scraped against sharp edges. His tie, his only tie, dragged through a puddle of coolant and came out stained beyond salvation. "You're good at this," Aisha observed, and it wasn't a question. "My father was mechanic," Samuel replied, not looking up. "Before he passed, he teach me small. He secured the tape, then reached for the coolant reservoir. "You get water? Anything for drink?" She retrieved a bottle of expensive mineral water from her car's interior, handed it over without hesitation. Samuel poured it carefully into the reservoir, knowing it wasn't ideal but would work for a short journey. "Where were you going?" he asked, making conversation while he walked. "Before the car stopped. A meeting. Important one." Her voice carried its own weight of consequence. "Board presentation. Revenue projections. The kind of meeting where being late means looking incompetent." Samuel glanced at his phone lying on the car's bumper. 9:56 a.m. 4 minutes. "Yes, Ma," he said softly. "I understand that thing." "Your interview," she said, and it wasn't a question either. "What kind of job?" "Tech company. Innovate Solutions." He tested the host connection, felt it hold. "IT support specialist. Is my dream position, Ma. Good salary. Benefits. Chance to use my training." He didn't mention the medical bills, the eviction notice, the weight of being his family's last hope. "And you're here instead." There was something almost wondering in her voice. "You need help now," Samuel said simply. He wiped his hands on his already ruined pants, leaving dark streaks. "My interview can wait. Maybe they go understand." But they both knew that was a lie. Corporate Lagos didn't pause for late candidates, no matter how good their excuses. There were always 10 more qualified people in the waiting room, punctual and pristine. "Try the ignition, Ma," Samuel said, stepping back from the engine. Aisha hesitated for just a moment, studying this young man who'd sacrificed his future for her present, then moved to the driver's seat. Samuel checked his phone one last time as she turned the key. 9:58 a.m. 2 minutes left. And somewhere in the engine, something coughed, sputtered, and began to catch. The engine coughed once, twice, then died with a wheeze that sounded almost apologetic. Samuel's jaw tightened, but his expression remained calm as he gestured for Aisha to try again. "Wait small. Give him 30 seconds, then turn again." His phone screen glowed accusingly from the bumper. 9:59 a.m. 60 seconds until his entire future evaporated into Lagos traffic. The Okada driver had stopped complaining and now sat in resigned silence, a man watching another man throw away his destiny. Samuel plunged back into the engine bay, fingers working faster now, checking connections, testing the tape seal, tracing fuel lines. Sweat ran down his temples, stinging his eyes. His shirt clung to his back, translucent with perspiration and automotive fluids. The morning sun beat down mercilessly, turning the engine compartment into a furnace. "Now, Ma. Try now." The key turned. The engine caught, held for 3 beautiful seconds, then stuttered and died again. Behind him, Samuel heard Aisha's sharp intake of breath, not frustration at her car, but something else. Concern, maybe. For him. "You should go," she said, and her voice had gone soft. "You've done enough. I can wait for the professionals." Samuel didn't respond. He was already repositioning himself, angling his body differently to reach a connection he'd missed. His shoulder scraped against the car's frame hard enough to tear fabric. He barely noticed. 10 a.m. arrived with the silent violence of a door slamming shut. The interview panel would be seated now. His empty chair would be noted. His file would be set aside with the dozens of other no-shows who couldn't handle the pressure of punctuality. Some HR assistant would draw a line through his name, and that would be that. Ngozi's school fees. His mother's medication. The landlord's patience. All of it gone because he couldn't drive past a stranger in distress. The fuel pump, Samuel muttered, more to himself than Aisha. Maybe, yes. Here. He found the connection, loose where it should have been tight. Road vibration must have worked it free over time, a failure waiting to happen. His fingers, slick with grease and sweat, struggled to grip it properly. Aisha had gotten out of the car and stood beside him now, close enough that he caught the scent of her perfume cutting through the oil and coolant smell. Something expensive and foreign. Another word. "What's your name?" she asked quietly. "Samuel, Mo." "Samuel Obi." "Samuel." She tested it, like she was committing it to memory. "You're very good at this." "Natural talent or training?" "Both, Mo." He grunted with effort, finally feeling the connection sit properly. "My father, he say good mechanic must understand the machine spirit. Must listen what the engine they tell you." "And what is this engine telling you?" "Say she tired, Mo." "Say she been working hard, no proper maintenance." He straightened slightly, wiping his forehead with the back of his hand, leaving a streak of grime. "Like plenty people for Lagos. We dey run until something break." Their eyes met for a moment, and Samuel saw something flicker across her face, recognition, maybe, or kinship. Like she understood that particular exhaustion intimately. "Try am again, Mo. This time he go work." Aisha moved back to the driver's seat with what looked like reluctance, as if she'd rather stay and watch this young man work miracles with his ruined hands. The key turned. The engine caught. Held. The steady rumble of success vibrated through the car's frame, and even the Okada driver let out a surprised laugh. Samuel allowed himself a smile, small and tired but genuine, as he carefully lowered the hood and secured it. "Thank God," Aisha breathed, but she was looking at Samuel, not the engine. He checked his phone out of habit. 10:17 a.m. 17 minutes past the point of no return. His hands were black with grease, his suit was destroyed, his tie was ruined, and his one chance at saving his family was gone. But the car purred smoothly, and the woman in the yellow dress was safe. Samuel gathered his jacket from the mirror, its fabric stiff with oil stains that would never wash out. His cousin would understand, probably. Maybe. "You're a miracle worker, Samuel Obi," Aisha said, and something in her tone made it sound like more than a compliment. It sounded like a verdict. Aisha opened her handbag with practiced efficiency, the kind of movement that came from years of reaching for solutions that money could buy. She extracted a wallet, leather, designer, the class catching sunlight, and began counting bills with quick, elegant fingers. "How much?" she asked, looking up at Samuel. "For the repair, for your time, for..." Her eyes traveled over his ruined suit, the grease stains that had transformed him from job candidate to roadside mechanic. "For everything you've lost helping me." Samuel watched the bills accumulate in her hand. Crisp 1,000 naira notes, probably more money than she'd normally carry, but this was a woman who clearly prepared for contingencies. 5,000. 10,000. She kept counting, her expression serious, determined to make this right in the only language Lagos usually understood. 15,000 naira. More than his remaining 8,500 Nigerian nairas. More than enough to replace his cousin's suit, to buy another chance at a different interview, to buy time with the landlord, to buy his mother's medication for another month. 20,000, Aisha said firmly, pressing the folded bills toward him. "And that's not enough for what you've done, but it's what I have right now. Please." Samuel looked at the money. At her expectant face. At the Okada driver behind him who had dismounted and now watched this exchange with naked interest, probably calculating his own share if Samuel accepted. Then he shook his head. "No, Mo." Aisha blinked. "Excuse me. I no fit collect money, Mo." Samuel's voice was quiet but certain. He wiped his hands on his pants one more time, a futile gesture since they'd never be truly clean again. "I no do am for money. But your suit. Your interview. You've lost." She seemed genuinely confused, as if she'd encountered a glitch in the universe's operating system. "Samuel, please. Let me at least compensate you for what this cost you. More." He met her eyes directly, something he'd been taught never to do with Lagos's wealthy elite, but somehow it felt necessary. "You've been stranded for road. danger place. You need help pass how I need money. He gestured at the still idling engine. You fit reach your meeting now. That one important pass anything. My meeting. Aisha's laugh was short, almost bitter. My meeting that made me choose the shortcut through this route. My meeting that I thought was the most important thing in my world 30 minutes ago. She studied him with that assessing look again, sharper now. What was the interview for? The company. Innovate Tech Solutions, Mo. IT support specialist position. Samuel allowed himself a small, sad smile. But I think say that ship don't sail. Maybe not. Let me call them. Let me explain what happened. I can. No, Mo. Samuel's voice was gentle but firm. Not my choice. I choose to stop. I choose to help. Nobody forced me. He glanced at his phone. 10:19 a.m. And I go choose am again, even if I know wetin go happen. Something shifted in Aisha's expression then, something profound that Samuel couldn't quite name. She stood there in her yellow Ankara dress, this powerful woman rendered momentarily speechless by a young man in a destroyed suit who refused 20,000 naira for doing what he believed was right. You're remarkable, she said finally, and her voice had gone thick with emotion. Samuel Obi. You're absolutely remarkable. I just be person we know say we suppose help each other, Mo. He picked up his jacket, felt its weight now heavy with more than oil stains. Your meeting day wait. You suppose go. At least tell me, give me your number. Let me find a way to thank you properly. Samuel hesitated. Something in him wanted to refuse this too, to walk away clean, to let this be a pure moment unmarred by expectation or obligation. But another part of him, the practical part that had his mother's labored breeding and son Goz's worn school shoes, made him recite his number. Aisha typed it into her phone with fingers that trembled slightly, then looked up at him one more time. I won't forget this. I promise you, Samuel. I won't forget. Safe journey, Mo. Samuel nodded respectfully, then turned to the waiting Okada. Oya, make we dey go. The driver kick-started the bike, and Samuel climbed on, feeling the weight of his sacrifice settle into his bones. As they pulled away, he looked back once and saw Aisha still standing beside her car, phone pressed to her ear, watching him disappear into Lagos traffic. She was smiling, but her eyes were bright with something that looked almost like tears. Samuel faced forward and didn't look back again. The glass tower of Innovate Tech Solutions rose before Samuel like a monument to everything he wasn't: pristine, polished, impenetrable. He dismounted from the Okada with legs that felt disconnected from his body, paid the driver with the last of his cash, and stood on the marble steps trying to compose himself. It was hopeless. His reflection in the building's mirrored facade showed him the truth: grease-stained shirt plastered to his skin, suit jacket draped over one arm like a surrender flag, tie hanging limp and discolored around his neck. His face was streaked with sweat and grime, his hair disheveled. He looked like someone who'd been in a fight with a machine and lost. 10:34 a.m. 34 minutes late. But he'd come this far. He had to try. The lobby was a cathedral of corporate ambition, all gleaming marble and chrome, with a reception desk that seemed designed to intimidate. Central air conditioning hit him like a wall of judgment, raising goosebumps on his sweat-damp skin. Other visitors moved through the space in crisp business attire, their shoes clicking with the confident rhythm of people who arrived on time. Samuel approached the reception desk, acutely aware of the trail of dust his borrowed shoes left on the immaculate floor. The receptionist, a young woman whose nameplate read Chidima, looked up with a professional smile that faltered when she saw his appearance. Good morning, Samuel managed, his voice hoarse. I had interview. 10 o'clock. Samuel Obi. Chidima's eyes widened slightly. She typed something into her computer, her manicured nails clicking against the keyboard, then her expression shifted from surprise to sympathy, the worst possible expression. Mr. Obi. Her voice was gentle, the tone you'd use with someone receiving bad news. Your interview was scheduled for 10 a.m. Yes, I know. I'm sorry, there was emergency. Woman stranded for road, her car, I had to, Samuel heard himself babbling and forced himself to stop. The explanation sounded absurd even to his own ears. Please. Can I still see them? The hiring manager. Anyone? Chidima glanced at her computer screen, then back at Samuel with genuine regret. Mr. Ademola, the IT director, he conducted the morning interviews and left for an off-site meeting at 10:30. He won't be back until tomorrow. The words hit Samuel like physical blows. Left. Won't be back. Tomorrow. Is no other person I fit talk to? HR. Someone. I can take your information, and we'll try to reschedule, but... Her eyes traveled over his appearance again, and Samuel saw the calculation happening behind her professional courtesy. This wasn't someone they'd reschedule for. This was someone who couldn't handle the basic requirement of showing up on time. Mr. Obi, I have to be honest with you. They interviewed 7 candidates this morning. The position is very competitive. I understand. Samuel's voice came out flat, empty. But please. Just tell them I came. Tell them I tried. Tell them, he stopped, unsure what message could possibly matter now. Chidima softened further, reaching for a business card. Give me your number. I'll make sure Mr. Ademola knows you attempted to attend, and we'll see if there's any possibility of rescheduling. Samuel recited his number, watching her write it down with handwriting that was probably neater than his entire life had ever been. He knew what "we'll see you" meant in corporate speak. It meant no. It meant the door closing quietly but firmly. Thank you, he said, because his mother had raised him to be polite even in defeat. I'm sorry, Chidima replied, and Samuel believed she meant it. These things happen. Maybe it wasn't meant to be. Samuel nodded mechanically and turned toward the door. Behind him, he heard her answer a phone call in a bright, professional voice, the voice of someone whose day was going exactly as planned. The lobby felt longer on the way out, the marble floor stretching endlessly beneath his feet. He passed a man in an expensive suit, probably one of the other candidates, who gave him a curious, slightly alarmed look. Samuel kept his eyes forward, jaw clenched, refusing to let the emotion building in his chest escape until he was outside. The Lagos heat hit him like an accusation when he pushed through the glass doors. The city noise resumed, horns, generators, voices, all of it indifferent to his personal catastrophe. Samuel stood on the marble steps of Innovate Tech Solutions, still clutching his ruined jacket, and allowed himself one moment of complete stillness. One moment to feel the full weight of what he'd lost. Then he started the long walk home, where he'd have to explain to his mother and Gozi why their prayers hadn't been enough, why his one chance had slipped through grease-stained fingers, why doing the right thing had cost them everything. Samuel walked. Not because he had a destination, but because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant facing what he'd done. The sun climbed higher, turning Lagos into a furnace. Sweat soaked through his already ruined shirt. His feet ached in his cousin's too tight shoes. Twice he considered using his last coins for a bus, but even that small relief felt like something he didn't deserve. He walked past the market where vendors called out their wares, past the mechanic shops where men his father's age bent over engines, past the churches with their painted promises of breakthrough and divine intervention. The city moved around him with its usual chaotic energy, indifferent to his failure. Around noon, he found himself at a small park, really just a patch of brown grass with a few benches beneath struggling trees. He sat, finally, and let his head fall into his hands. 20,000 naira. He'd refused 20,000 naira. The thought circled his mind like a vulture. With that money, he could have replaced the suit, rescheduled the interview, bought time. Instead, he had nothing but grease stains and a phone number from a receptionist who'd never call. His phone buzzed. A text from Gozi, "Brother, how'd the interview go? Mama say we should pray for you." "I'm praying." Samuel stared at the message until the screen blurred. His sister's faith, his mother's hope, he'd gambled with them both and lost. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before finally settling on, "Still waiting to hear. We'll tell you everything when I reach home." The lie tasted bitter, but the truth felt impossible. Home. He'd have to go home eventually. face his mother's expectant eyes, hear Ngozi's eager questions, explain why he'd chosen a stranger's problem over their survival. They'd tell him he did the right thing, they'd have to, because that's what good people said, but behind their supportive words, he'd see the fear. The rent was due. The medication was running out. The school fees deadline was approaching like a storm they couldn't outrun. An old man sat down on the adjacent bench, carrying a bag of groundnuts. He glanced at Samuel's appearance, the destroyed suit, the stained shirt, the defeated posture, and offered a handful of nuts without comment. "Thank you, sir," Samuel said quietly, accepting them though he had no appetite. "Rough day?" the man asked in Yoruba accented English. Samuel let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes, sir. Very rough. You look like somebody will fight war and lose." "Something like that." The old man nodded sagely. "But you still dey alive. Still dey breathe. Tomorrow go come whether we ready or not." He stood, patted Samuel's shoulder with a weathered hand, and shuffled away, leaving Samuel with his groundnuts and his failure. Tomorrow would come. And the day after. And Samuel would still be unemployed, still be struggling, still be letting down everyone who depended on him. The woman in the yellow dress would probably forget him by evening, a small kindness from a stranger, barely worth remembering. Meanwhile, his family would pay the price for his good deed for months, maybe years. The afternoon stretched into early evening before Samuel finally forced himself to stand. The walk home felt like walking to an execution, his own. The compound was quiet when he arrived. Children played in the courtyard, their laughter a jarring contrast to his mood. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavier than the last, until he reached their door. Inside, he could hear his mother humming a gospel song about God making a way. The sound nearly broke him. Samuel pushed open the door. His mother was at the small stove, her back to him, still humming. Ngozi sat at their battered table doing homework, and her head snapped up when she heard him enter. "Brother." Her smile was so bright, so full of hope. "How was it? Did you get the job? Tell us everything." His mother turned, still smiling, her tired eyes lit with anticipation. "Samuel, my son. We've been waiting. Sit, sit. You must be hungry." Samuel stood in the doorway of their humble home, his ruined suit hanging off his shoulders like shame, and opened his mouth to destroy their hope. "Mama," he began, and his voice cracked. "Ngozi. I need to tell you something." His mother's smile faltered. Ngozi's pen stopped mid-word. And Samuel, who had been so certain that morning that he was heading toward his future, told them how he'd watched it drive away instead. His mother listened in silence. When he finished, she crossed the room and pulled him into her arms, this woman who had so little strength left but gave it freely anyway. "You did good," she whispered against his shoulder. "My son, you did good." But Samuel heard what she didn't say. "Now what do we do?" Samuel woke to the sound of roosters and the weight of yesterday still pressing on his chest. For a moment, suspended between sleep and consciousness, he'd forgotten. Then memory crashed back, the car, the interview, the walk home, his mother's brave face trying to hide her fear. He lay on his mat staring at the ceiling, watching morning light creep across water stains that mapped their own geography of hardship. Beside him, Ngozi still slept, curled on her side, one hand tucked under her cheek. She'd cried last night after he told them everything, though she tried to hide it. His phone showed 7:23 a.m. Thursday morning. The day after the end of everything. Samuel forced himself up, folded his sleeping mat, and moved through their morning routine with mechanical precision. His mother was already awake, heating water for tea they'd drink without sugar because they'd run out 2 days ago. "Good morning, Mama." "Morning, my son." She didn't ask how he'd slept. They both knew. He was reaching for his one clean shirt, the old one, threadbare at the collar, when his phone rang. Unknown number. Lagos area code. Probably a wrong number, or one of those scam calls promising instant wealth. Samuel almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, desperation, or maybe just the stubborn hope that refused to die completely, made him swipe to accept. "Hello. Good morning." Am I speaking with Samuel Obi? A woman's voice, professional, crisp. Yes. This is Samuel. Mr. Obi, this is Chidima from Innovate Tech Solutions. A pause, and Samuel's heart stuttered. I'm calling on behalf of our CEO's office. She would like to see you today. This morning, if possible. Samuel stood frozen, phone pressed to his ear, certain he'd misheard. Sorry, Ma. You say. Our CEO would like to meet with you personally. Are you available to come to our office at 9 a.m.? The CEO? Samuel's voice came out strangled. But I miss my interview. Mr. Ademela, he leave already. Yesterday the receptionist say. Yes, I remember, Mr. Obi. Chidima's voice carried a smile he could hear. This is a different meeting. Not with Mr. Ademela. With CEO directly. Can you make it by 9? Samuel's mind raced, trying to make sense of this. CEOs didn't meet with failed interview candidates. CEOs didn't even know failed interview candidates existed. Unless this was some kind of formal rejection. A security concern about his appearance yesterday. A lecture about wasting their time. Something bad disguised as opportunity. Mr. Obi. Are you still there? Yes, Ma. I dey here. Yes, I fit come. 9 a.m. Excellent. Please go to the executive reception on the 20th floor. Give them your name. Someone will escort you. A brief pause. And Mr. Obi. Dress professionally, but don't worry too much about, well. Just come as you are. The line went dead. Samuel stared at his phone like it had transformed into something alien. His mother had stopped preparing tea and was watching him with cautious hope she was clearly trying to suppress. Who was that? Innovate Tech Solutions. Samuel's voice sounded distant to his own ears. They want to see me. Today. The CEO want to see me. The CEO? His mother's hand went to her chest. Samuel, that's good news, yes. That must be good news. I don't know, Mama. Samuel sank onto the bench, still gripping his phone. I don't understand. Why would CEO want to see me? I missed the interview. I failed already. Ngozi had woken and sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Brother, what's happening? I don't know, Samuel repeated, and it was the truest thing he'd said in 2 days. His mother moved with sudden purpose, pulling out their small basin for washing. You will go? You will go and you will see what God has planned. Maybe yesterday wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning. Mama, I don't even know if. Samuel Obi. His mother's voice carried the authority that had raised him through every hardship. When opportunity calls, even if you don't understand it, you answer. You go. You listen. You see what this woman wants to say. She was right, of course. What choice did he have? Stay home and wonder. Refuse out of fear or pride. Samuel looked at the time again. 7:31 a.m. He had 90 minutes to make himself presentable and get across the city to face whatever waited for him on the 20th floor of that glass tower. His hands were shaking, not from fear exactly, but from something more complex. The kind of trembling that came from standing on the edge of something unknown, where the drop could destroy you or save you, and you wouldn't know which until you jumped. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. I go. His mother smiled, and for the first time since yesterday, he saw something besides brave pretense in her eyes. Hope. Dangerous, fragile, impossible hope. Samuel stood and went to prepare himself for the unbelievable. The 20th floor was a different world. Where the ground-level lobby had been impressive, the executive floor was transcendent, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos, leather furniture that probably cost more than Samuel's annual rent, and an air of hushed power that made him want to whisper. The receptionist here, not Chidinma, but another impeccably dressed woman, greeted him with a knowing smile. Mr. Obi. Welcome. Please, Follow me. Samuel followed, his clean but still worn shoes sinking into carpet so plush it felt like walking on clouds. They passed offices with names on brass plaques, conference rooms with walls of glass, hallways lined with awards and framed articles about Innovate Tech's meteoric rise. Then they reached a set of double doors, dark wood, imposing, with a brass nameplate that read, Aisha Bello, Chief Executive Officer. Samuel's stomach dropped. Aisha. The woman from yesterday. But it couldn't be the same. The receptionist knocked once, opened the door, and gestured him inside. Miss Bello, Mr. Samuel Obi is here. Thank you, Amora. Please, close the door behind him. That voice. Samuel knew that voice. He stepped into the office, a vast space with a view that stretched to the horizon, where Lagos sprawled in all its chaotic glory. And there, rising from behind a desk that looked carved from single piece of mahogany, was the woman in the yellow dress. Except today she wore a tailored navy suit, her hair styled differently, her presence transformed from stranded motorist to something far more formidable. But the face was unmistakable. The same elegant features, the same assassin eyes. Samuel Obi. She smiled, and it was warm but carried an edge of something else, vindication, maybe. Please, sit down. Samuel remained frozen in the doorway, his mind struggling to connect yesterday's helpless stranger with the CEO of the company he'd dreamed of joining. You're Aisha Bello, CEO and founder of Innovate Tech Solutions. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. Yes. I am. And you are the young man who sacrificed his dream interview to fix my car. Samuel moved mechanically to the chair and sat, his thoughts tumbling over each other. You were testing me? Yesterday. The car, the interview, it was all test. No. Aisha's response was firm as she settled back into her own chair, fingers stippled in front of her. My car genuinely broke down. My panic was real. Your choice was real. What happened yesterday was not a test, Samuel. It was a revelation. But you knew about my interview. I told you where I was going. You did. And when you left, I made some calls. Found out your interview slot had already been marked as a no-show. Mr. Ademola had moved on to other candidates. She leaned forward, her eyes intense. So I watched the security footage from our lobby. Watched you arrive at 10:34, covered in grease and desperation, trying to salvage something you must have known was already lost. Samuel's throat tightened. She'd seen all of it. His humiliation, his defeat, his futile attempt to explain the unexplainable. Then I did something I rarely do, Aisha continued. I researched you. Called your references. Spoke to your former instructors. Read every line of the resume you submitted. She pulled out a folder, his application, and tapped it. On paper, Samuel, you're qualified. But this city is full of qualified people. What it lacks is people with character. Ma, I don't understand why. You refused 20,000 naira. Her voice carried wonder even now. I offered you money that could have solved immediate problems, and you refused because you believed I needed help more than you needed compensation. When was the last time someone in this city chose compassion over cash? Samuel had no answer. I've built this company over 15 years, Aisha said, standing and moving to the window, her silhouette framed against the sprawling city. Fought for every contract, every innovation, every success. And you know what I've learned? Skills can be taught. Technical knowledge can be acquired. But integrity. She turned to face him. That's either in someone's DNA or it isn't. And yesterday, on that roadside, you showed me yours. I just did what felt right. Exactly. Aisha returned to her desk, and when she looked at him now, there was no distance between CEO and candidate. Just recognition. My company needs people who do what feels right even when it costs them everything. People who help strangers. People who understand that sometimes the most important thing isn't the appointment you're rushing to, but the person stranded on the side of the road. She opened a drawer, withdrew a document, and placed it on the desk between them. Samuel Obi, I'm not offering you the IT support position you interviewed for. That role is too small for someone with your character. She pushed the document toward him. I'm offering you a place in our management training program. 6 months of rotations through every department, learning how this company works from the inside. Starting salary is 3 times what the support role paid. Samuel stared at the document, unable to process the words printed there. You missed your dream job interview to fix a stranger's car, Aisha said softly. The next day turned out to be unbelievable. So, Samuel, what do you say? Samuel's hands trembled as he reached for the document. The paper felt impossibly real beneath his fingers, thick, official, stamped with the Innovate Tech logo. The numbers swam before his eyes. The salary alone was more than he'd allowed himself to dream about, more than enough to cover his mother's treatment, Ngozi's school fees, rent for years if they were careful. I don't, his voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. Ma, I don't know what to say. Yes would be a good start. Aisha's smile was gentle, understanding. Though I should warn you, this program is rigorous. You'll work harder than you've ever worked. You'll be challenged daily. Some weeks you'll question whether you made the right choice accepting this. It's still more than I deserve. No, Samuel. Aisha's voice turned sharp, and she leaned forward with an intensity that commanded his full attention. That's exactly the thinking I'm trying to change. You deserve this precisely because you don't think you do. Because when faced with a choice between self-interest and helping someone in need, you chose compassion. That's rare. That's valuable. That's worth far more than any technical certification or degree. Samuel looked down at the document again, then back at Aisha. My father used to say something. He said the word go test you when you least expect them. Say the test no they look like test, it go look like ordinary choice. But how you choose, that one go show who you really be. Your father was a wise man. He would have like you, Ma. Samuel felt tears threatening and forced them back. He would have said I do the right thing yesterday. Even when it cost everything. And he would have been right. Aisha stood, moved around the desk, and extended her hand, not as CEO to employee, but as equal to equal. What you did yesterday wasn't just help a stranger, Samuel. You reminded me why I built this company. I started Innovate Tech because I believed business could be different. Could be about more than profit. Could be about building something that elevates people, that rewards character, that creates the kind of world where stopping to help isn't seen as foolish but as essential. Samuel stood and took her hand. Her grip was firm, confident, sealing something more than just an employment contract. I used to measure success by quarterly reports and market share, Aisha continued, releasing his hand but holding his gaze. But lately I've been asking myself, what legacy am I building? What kind of people am I bringing into this organization? She gestured at the document. You answered that question for me yesterday. I want people who understand that sometimes the most important business decision is the one made on a roadside when nobody's watching. Samuel picked up the pen Aisha had placed beside the contract. It was heavy, expensive, the kind of pen that signed important things. His hand hovered over the signature line. My mother and sister, he said quietly. When I got home yesterday, I thought I was bringing them my failure. My mother, she held me and said I did good. But I could see the fear in her eyes, Ma. The fear of how we go survive. And now? Now I go home and tell them say God answered their prayers. Just no be the way we expect. He looked up at Aisha. Sometimes the blessing no they look like blessing at first. Sometimes it look like sacrifice. Sometimes the door that closes is the wrong door, Aisha said softly. And the universe is making room for the right one to open. Samuel signed his name, Samuel Obi, in careful, deliberate strokes. When he set the pen down, he felt something shift inside him, like a weight he'd been carrying for years finally lifting. Welcome to Innovate Tech Solutions, Aisha said, and her smile was radiant. Your official start date is Monday. That gives you the weekend to celebrate with your family and to get that suit properly cleaned. She paused, her expression turning playful. Or maybe just get a new one. We have an employee advance program for situations exactly like this. Samuel laughed, actually laughed, for the first time in what felt like forever. Thank you, Ma. For everything. For the chance. For seeing something in me I wasn't sure was there. Oh, it's there. Aisha walked him to the door, her hand briefly touching his shoulder. And Samuel. In this company, we don't just see character. We celebrate it. You're going to do extraordinary things here. I'm certain of it. As Samuel left the office, walking back through those plush corridors with a signed contract in his hand, he thought about his father's words. About tests that don't look like tests. About choices that define who you really are. He'd stopped for a stranger yesterday, not knowing she was a CEO. Not knowing it would change his life. He'd simply done what felt right. And somehow, impossibly, the universe had noticed. Samuel stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the ground floor, and as the doors closed, he saw his reflection in the polished metal. The same young man from yesterday, but different somehow. Standing taller. Carrying hope instead of despair. When he reached the lobby, Chidima looked up from her desk and broke into a genuine smile. Congratulations, Mr. Obi. I had a feeling about you. Thank you, Samuel said, and meant it. He walked out of Innovate Tech Solutions into the Lagos morning, pulled out his phone, and called his mother. Mama, he said when she answered, his voice thick with emotion. You no go believe what just happened. And as he told her the unbelievable story, standing in the shadow of the glass tower that was now his workplace, Samuel finally understood the true measure of success. It wasn't about arriving on time or wearing the right suit or saying the perfect things in an interview. It was about who you chose to be when no one important was watching. Except someone always is. If this story touched your heart, don't just watch and leave. Like this video, subscribe to African Untold with Chuks, and share it with someone who still believes kindness matters. Your support keeps these stories alive.